Hello, everyone. It's Debbie Potts, and I am sharing the presentation I'm working on for a seminar on optimizing your lifespan VO2 max testing. I thought I would record some of it here because it's way too long. There's so much information to cover, and I need to do 3 different segments of this slideshow. So hopefully you are watching on YouTube or you're listening, but the screens, those slides are nice to see, visual aids if you need a little understanding what we test in a metabolic test to figure out your VO2 max. And I'll go through some definitions as I always want to know why. So I thought I'd throw those together. We'll talk about personalization of fueling and training based on metabolic testing, what we gather from a test. So it's individualization, testing, not guessing. Resting metabolism test and exercise metabolism test. I'll just touch on a little bit of the markers we get in the report, how to figure out your training zones, and precision medicine clues, how we can really personalize a program, looking at your blood chemistry, looking at your genetics, looking at your microbiome stool test, food sensitivities, and all that together to really figure out the best program for you. So if you don't know me by now, I've been doing this for 12 years on the podcast, and I have been in the fitness industry for 25 plus years. Now I'm 52. So let's see. I started in college, so it's been a long time. I have gone through many certification trainings since I studied corporate fitness and exercise science in college and health. And then I got into ACSM. And then over the years, I got NASM certified and Pilates and yoga, metabolic efficiency training. Then got into Ben Greenfield's coaching program, Superhuman and Keon, part of their coaching team. And then I became functional nutritional therapy practitioner. Paul Check has the Check Institute, holistic lifestyle coach. I did his level 1 program. I've done the USA Triathlon level 1 coaching program, DNA Fit course, FDN practitioner, where I'm kind of focusing on putting this all together now based on the FDN practitioner work, doing the lab test assessments and being a health investigator. Last year, I did Dr. Stacy Sims Menopause 2.0 course, and now I'm in the Precision Medicine Wild Health program fellowship for 6 months and going into epigenetics and health optimization, but really learning a lot about behavior coaching. That's the other part I didn't know I was going to be getting into. And then I am a competitive age group athlete in my previous life. So I say I'm a retired athlete. And I did Ironmans for many years and retired because of health issues, which is why I do what I do today. Is my purpose is to help you avoid going through what I went through starting back in 2013 when I got huge, major roadblock, red flags everywhere, stop, pause, and reset because I got adrenal exhaustion, which could be a combination of everything. We call an FDN, we call it a metabolic chaos. So that's been me and why I kind of got into doing all these different more functional medicine, root cause medicine courses to help the high performer, the athlete of all levels, endurance athlete, just stop, pause, and reset. Don't do what I did of doing everything too much, including too low carb, too much fasting, too much training, too much of everything. So I wrote that in a book, Life is Not a Race, that's on Amazon, and I put together the Holistic Method manual. So lots of information out there that you can grab. Many episodes of our podcast. We're up to 535 episodes. Before that, it was John Smith and I did Fit Fat Fast podcast 12 years ago. We have 100 episodes of that in the archives. And then I've just been left to my own self podcasting because everyone else quit. So it's just me. What have I learned over the years? Real quick, more is not better. Too much of anything is toxic. Too little of anything leads to deficiencies. That results in what I always say, the Goldilocks effect. And genetics, stress tolerance, we're all different. That's why I love looking at genetics and looking at lab tests and looking at the person, because I wondered why I broke down and burned out my body systems where I had friends doing the same races every year as I did, but they were fine. Chronic anything doesn't lead to positive ending. Chronic fatigue, if it's from cell danger theory, hormones, gut health, what it might be, is just kind of a combination. So as we age, my little video out of here, what do we learn? What happens as we age? We lose a lot of things. We don't have to. It's a choice. We have to fight harder. VO2 max. We have to fight harder to get lean, stronger muscles, lose fat weight, but lose lean body mass is not what you want. So you want to gain muscle, focus on mobility, your balance, speed, and power. So when we talk today about VO2 max, training is a marker for longevity based on what the research and all the social media podcasts and everybody's saying. VO2 max, all-cause mortality risk goes down. Well, we also want to make sure, are you getting stronger? How's your mobility? How is your balance? Can you put your pants on without holding on to something? Can you put your shoes on without sitting down? So balance, but also speed, especially women, we have less fast twitch muscle fibers. We have more slow twitch muscle fibers. That's why I always talk about speed and power as I get older, that I need to do less slow, long, sustained distance zone 2 training and more focus on speed and power, because this is what I'm losing. And I don't want to be slow and sluggish. So it's individualization. So we want to look at a holistic approach. I call it the holistic method. Men versus women, a little different. Figure out what you need to improve your aging process. So when we do VO2 max testing, I use Pinoy Metabolic Testing Kit. We can figure out what's your biological age versus chronological age. And over here, you can see what you can look at is factors on the Pinoy test. Now there's genetics, and we'll talk to true age diagnostics, all sorts of blood work and other markers. This is biological versus chronological age based on your VO2 max, fat burning efficiency, and your metabolic rate that we identify in the test. So your cardiorespiratory fitness, your VO2 max, is the best predictor on how long and how well you will live. A high fat burning efficiency is equivalent to high cellular fitness, essential for preventing metabolic disease and weight gain. And a high metabolic rate is crucial for long-term health, as it is the most effective shield against weight gain or fat gain, the number one driver behind the three most common causes of death: lung, heart, and metabolic disease. So that is what we'll talk a little bit about, these longevity markers that we get from the metabolic test, resting, and exercise test. But we can use this VO2 max testing when I do Pinoy, and we'll get a little prediction in your report after your test. So Peter T is a big influencer, so I'm gonna touch on little things on that, his pillars. But the VO2 max, whoops, I'm scrolling, sorry. VO2 max, or the maximal oxygen uptake, is the measure of maximum amount of oxygen your body can utilize during intense exercise. It is considered the gold standard for assessing aerobic fitness, cardiovascular endurance. VO2 max is typically expressed, and I'm going to repeat this about 20 times in this seminar so everyone will know what this is. VO2 max, milliliters of oxygen per kilogram of body weight per minute. So ml, kilogram per minute. So ways we can improve it, we'll talk about that because that's going to be individualized. Optimizing a lifespan. Peter Tia talks a lot, and Huberman, that are really making a difference in our world about creating attention to optimizing lifespan. Now, I've talked about my 8 elements, my holistic method, for 12 years, but I'm not a doctor. I'm a practitioner and a coach and a trainer for a long time, but I don't have the influence that these guys do, but I'll go touch on what Peter says in his book, Outlive. Now, nutrition, similar to me, I think nutrient dense foods, minimizing processed foods, sugar, refined carbohydrates. He emphasizes importance of balanced macronutrient intake, adequate protein, healthy fats, and complex carbohydrates from nature is what I would add in. I think it's what everyone should reframe how we say that. Now, exercise, regular fitness exercise, longevity, overall health, but talking about a combination of what I talk about, what we lose as we get older, importance of that balance and mobility. So aerobic exercise, strength training, flexibility is important, as well as sprint training, the HIIT training, and low intensity cardio everyone's talking about that's driving me nuts. Zone 2. And I've said why it drives me nuts because it is not specific to everybody, just the general public who doesn't do anything. But we here have, if you've been an endurance athlete as long as I have, we've been doing maffetone, max aerobic function, 180 minus your age, heart rate for many years, so like 20 years. And we know what is our, well, actually, I won't say most of us hopefully know what our zone two is or what our MAF number is and where we stay and train most workouts and when we need to do more speed work. And women, our routine is going to look different than men. We probably should be focusing on more sprint interval training than hit and more variety, not just doing zone two. So that's where it depends on what your exercise program looks like. But for sure, you should see one hit training, one zone two workout, one mobility, one stability workout in there, and yoga, restorative stuff. So it's getting that balanced workout that's promoting longevity, optimizing lifespan, overall health. Now, sleep, we know, is crucial for optimizing health and longevity. Sleep hygiene routine, consistent sleep schedule, a sleep environment. You know, this is what everyone talks about. It's just not Peter Attia, but just what I want to bring up on his pillars, but how important it is. Now, same is what I've talked about in my holistic method program, metabolic health, hormesis, you know, the right amount of stressors, not too much of anything. So doing sauna, the fasting that's right for us when we're not exercising, and doing cold plunges if you do that. I don't. I'm more of a sauna person at nighttime, and really working on some hormetic stressors, which can be also your workout too, remember. So we want to look at metabolic health. You know, as I get into VO2 max training here, we want to look at our blood markers. We want to look at blood glucose, insulin sensitivity, lipid profiles, inflammatory markers. And I'm really shocked at how many people see concierge doctors and really top doctors, and they don't have their insulin measured. They don't know what their particle size of LDL particle size is. They don't know their APOB. We want to get more modern blood chemistry markers and looking at the whole picture as well as your full thyroid panel, not just your TSH. You want to look at your iron panel, look at your ferritin. We want to look at your vitamin D, all that we've talked about. So make sure you're getting someone that's looking at all this, or you can own your own labs, go to DHA labs, go to Alta labs. All right, let's get to the point. VO2 max longevity correlates with health span, lifespan, brain health. Is health and lifespan should be kind of the same thing. Vital metric for longevity and cardiorespiratory fitness. We'll talk about how to improve your VO2 max, doing the HIIT training, sprint training, zone 2 training, actionable items to get stronger, getting more fit. And then we'll talk about a little bit exercise fields, physiology definitions. Now, why do we focus so much on this? I want to go down these rabbit holes. So we know VO2 max, it's measured of the maximum amount of oxygen. Again, this is the second time I'll repeat this. There'll be many more. VO2 max reflects your body's ability to transport oxygen from the atmosphere. So you breathe it in and getting the oxygen into the muscles for energy production through our mitochondria. Now, the relationship between VO2 max longevity comes from the role of a cardiovascular fitness marker and overall health. So a higher level of VO2 max is associated with lower risk of cardiovascular diseases as heart attack and strokes, as long as lowering risk of metabolic disorders as type 2 diabetes and obesity, linked to improved brain health, cognitive function, and reduced risk of age-related cognitive decline, dementia. So I found this infographic through Pinoe. This allows you to understand the different lifestyles can affect quality of life. So interesting, if VO2 max in your 70s, functional capacity, chronic disease, estimated yearly medical expenses. So if you are able to run 10 miles an hour flat on the ground, chronic disease risk is extremely low. Estimated medical expenses per year still seems very high, $10,000 a year. US dollars. Very odd jumps up the stairs, brisk climb of stairs, walk 3 miles an hour, slight incline, walk 1 mile an hour, flat ground. So you can see your risk for chronic disease goes down the more you're able to do. I can do this. Yep. I can do that. I can do this. And I can actually run. I'd also, carry heavy objects upstairs, I think is more important than running on flat ground. Another chart I found, DexaFit, the VO2 max single best indicator for physical fitness, cardiovascular health. But what is that number that you get when you actually do the test, which we'll get to? Most people, I don't think, want to do a VO2 max test because you actually have to challenge yourself. Milliliters per kilogram per minute. What is women? I just was listening to a podcast on VO2 max, and it was the guy had shown some people are 100 for men and women lower. And so, yes, you might see a number in your Garmin watch, but that's not going to be as accurate as actually doing a test. That's just estimated. So VO2 max, elite athletes have twice the VO2 max level of the average human. Highest female, this was just updated in this podcast I was listening to, but Joanne Benoit had a 78.6. And then highest male VO2 max, whenever, I don't know what year this was, but 97.5, a cyclist. Man versus beast. A sled dog, husky dog, has a 240. So, wow, we're not equal to dogs. So, ATP production is how we create energy. So, we want to pitch a little bit of mitochondria. Mitochondria, are the organelles within the cells responsible for generating ATP. ATP requires oxygen. So aerobic respiration, oxygen is used to break down glucose and fatty acids, releasing energy that is captured in the form of ATP we talk about. So VO2 max reflects the maximum rate at which an individual can consume oxygen during intense exercise. This serves as a measure of aerobic fitness and indicates the capacity of cardiovascular and respiratory systems to deliver oxygen to the muscles. So it's a team effort. We have to breathe in oxygen, we have to deliver the oxygen to the muscles, and then we have to use that oxygen to create ATP so we can create energy to go faster, go longer, endurance. So VO2 max reflects the capacity of your mitochondria to utilize oxygen efficiently for ATP production. So we've talked a little bit about MitoPure and different supplements you can help for the mitochondria, looking at mitochondria biogenesis and mitochondria mitophagy. So just taking a sip of my mushroom coffee. So oxidative stress, we want to look at too another time. Did a little rabbit hole podcast on this. Oxidative stress and inflammation are terms that have dominated our industry. Despite frequently used, very few understand. So you can see that in a post on my Instagram on oxidative stress and inflammation. So regular exercise and a higher VO2 max are associated with the lower level of oxidative stress and inflammation in the body. So I'm making this more complicated just so you can understand that getting a VO2 max test and getting a number is your baseline data. How you can improve it isn't just doing these 4x4 workouts everyone's talking about, 10 times 1 minute, Tabata 4 times or 8 times 20 seconds all out, 10 seconds rest. There's more to it than just how you train. Of course, the holistic method, we have to look at your nutrition, your stress management, your recovery, your gut health, all of this. It's not just, here's your number, go work out this way. We need to look at your mitochondria health and also look at this oxidative stress we're creating. So oxidative stress, just to review or tell you, oxidative stress is the imbalance between production of reactive oxygen species, ROS, and the body's ability to detoxify or repair resulting damage. So again, the Goldilocks effect, it's like our liver detox pathways. If things get backlogged, we get too much, we can't keep up with it. So when our body produces more ROS than its antioxidants can tolerate, there's a buildup of oxidative stress. How are ROS created? Mitochondria produce electrons through a process called oxidative phosphorylation. These free radicals bind to oxygen molecules to create superoxide anions, which bind to hydrogen ions and iron to form ROS. Now, I'm not an exercise physiologist. I'm just sharing some knowledge I'm putting together. I'm definitely not a scientist or researcher, just a curious person. Now, you can see the pictures here in the video, the mitochondria, we get exercise and we get this free electron. O2 plus O2 negative, superoxide anion, free electron, ROS. So it's a little more complicated. Reactive oxygen species, we'll do a separate episode on. So just a good infographic again, when mitochondria are healthy and the intake of antioxidants is sufficient, it's like a, oh my God, what do you call these things? ROS is balance is kept at check. Teeter-totter. Teeter-totter is level. So think teeter-totter, antioxidants, ROS, we're in sync, we're balanced. Now, when we have too much, we get off balance. ROS versus the antioxidant, who's taking over, who's winning. So when our mitochondria are unhealthy and antioxidant intake is low, ROS starts to build up. So again, another reason to test, if you want to spend lots of money, we can do a micronutrient test on top of food sensitivities in your gut and all that. You can really go deep. So how do we increase our ROS? Our mitochondria deteriorate due to poor nutrition, lack of exercise, I'd say too much exercise, and unhealthy habits. More free electrons are spit out, producing more ROS. So excessive ROS leads to DNA alterations, cellular damage. So we want to look at all this because we want to keep our mitochondria healthy. We don't want to have chronic inflammation. And mitochondria are the powerhouse to create that ATP, remember. And remember, VO2 max reflects the ability of mitochondria to use oxygen and produce ATP efficiently. So if you're struggling getting the desired results by thinking you're doing all the right things, is what I always say, you might want to look at some other reasons you can't get that VO2 max number if you are retesting every 3 months. A higher VO2 max indicates a better mitochondrial function, which is essential for cellular energy production, oxidative stress management, and overall cellular health. Improved mitochondrial function is associated with longevity and delayed aging process. So as we, again, focus on VO2 max, we also need to look at oxidative stress, chronic inflammation, mitochondrial adaptations. So higher VO2 max is associated with greater mitochondrial efficiency. We just said electron chain is a series of protein complexes in the inner mitochondrial membrane, transferring these electrons to generate proton gradient, driving ATP synthesis. Exercise increases this activity, leading to more ATP. Exercise training enhances coupling between oxygen consumption and ATP synthesis, allowing for more ATP to produce per unit of oxygen consumed. So a higher VO2 max is correlated with greater mitochondrial respiratory capacity, enabling mitochondria to respond more effectively to changes in energy demands during exercise. All right. So how does this impact our health, our aging process, our performance? So the ability of mitochondria to get more oxygen, people with higher VO2 max, better equipped to meet energy demands, physical activity, help with exercise performance recovery. On the other side, mitochondria dysfunction and impaired ATP production has been implicated with various metabolic diseases, age-related conditions. So this highlights the importance of maintaining mitochondrial health for longevity. So again, research on VO2 max and mitochondrial function underscores the importance of efficient oxygen utilization for ATP production with implications for exercise performance, metabolic health, and longevity. So longer quality of life, VO2 max. So doing a Pnoe metabolic test, we can figure out your current zone 2 training, which I've talked about in many previous videos, and how I see that when I'm doing the metabolic test and how I get that data from the raw data where your peak fat max is and where your metabolic crossover point. Zone 2 training helps us burn fat efficiency, improve our efficiency, enhances cellular fitness, and of course, it will lower obesity risk working in the zone 2. Now, zone 4, zone 5 increases VO2 max, improves testosterone levels, enhances lung function from that respiratory fitness workout. So the balance between resistance, cardio, and I would say interval training, and the sprint interval training is a part of HIIT interval training, reverses your metabolic slowdown. helps improve recovery and maximize muscle development. But to improve recovery, it is a balance between the two, but listening to your body, using intuition, using your biometrics, and making sure you're not doing these intense workouts day after day after day. That's what I see a lot of people doing. So, cardiovascular health, we've talked about. What is heart with longevity? We've talked about the breath analysis. This is how we're testing to figure out what you are. So, VO2 max, again, you know what it is. By understanding your VO2 max, you have a clear measure of what your aerobic capacity is right now and the endurance potential, allowing you to tailor programs to improve oxygen uptake, enhancing performance and endurance. So it's a power of breath analysis that we are doing when we do a metabolic test or a VO2 max test. The key to unlocking the secrets, optimizing your nutrition and training specific metabolism. Now, here's some other examples of VO2 max, 10-year survival rate, risk of death from any cause, 2018. I found this on Google Images, but risk range 10 years. So this is bottom 25%, top 2. So you can see this data. Now, how does this marker help what I break up into my business tagline, fat loss, performance, longevity? So, fat loss goals. Understanding your resting metabolic rate that we measure helps creating more accurate calorie deficit and weight loss, fat loss. If you know how many calories you burn at rest, we can tailor your nutrition exercise program a little bit more. By determining your active metabolic rate, you can optimize your exercise intensity, duration to maximize your fat burning in your workouts, the zone 2 and the HIIT training. And with the PNOE data that we can collect, we can personalize it a little bit more to help enhance fat loss results. Another chart I found, age, going up to the right, VO2 max up on the left, low fitness is the red, average fitness here, green, obviously higher fitness. And look at that chart, how you can improve the aging process. So you can see just being able to keep up climbing stairs, running 6 miles an hour, briskly climbing stairs, running. I think being able to climb stairs, so funny. I just thought of this. If you watch movies or TV shows, they're filmed in Europe, in Italy, Greece. Notice when they're filming the people where their little villages are living, how many stairs they have to go up and down and incline hills, walking up a steep hill. So if we look at longevity for people in Europe, I just thought of this. Maybe it's not the Mediterranean diet so much as they are moving up hills all the time and climbing stairs. Maybe their VO2 max levels are higher and they're stronger because they're always moving. They're going uphill to get anywhere. So to get home, they have stairs and hills and in those villages. So that's a good insight. Combine that with proper nutrition and community and happiness, sense of joy, sense of relationships with other people and nutrient dense whole foods from nature. I think living in Europe sounds pretty good. Okay. So how does this metabolic testing help performance? So knowing your resting metabolic rate and active metabolic rate is AMR helps you, again, optimize nutrition training plans. We can understand how many calories you're burning and fine tuning all that together. We can help improve the lifespan, quality of lifespan. So another chart I found, risk reduction over 10-year. If you have, this is a hypothesis of physical fitness, cardiorespiratory fitness, and muscle strength combined on a healthy life years, disability-free life expectancy, and trained versus sedentary subjects. The dotted line represents prognostic exercise capacity, generally necessary for independent lifestyle and associated with an increased risk of mortality. The cutoff values are 17.5 milliliters kilogram per minute, 5 METs. For aerobic capacity, 30 kilograms and 18 kilograms for grip strength in men and women age over 65 and respectively 42. So looking at all that combined, trained, sedentary, healthy life seers. You can see strength and aerobic capacity is important, not just walking, but we want to keep our strength. All right. So how can all this testing data help our longevity? I think we know that by now, but just the metabolic health. So VO2 max is a good marker for metabolic health, insulin sensitivity, glucose metabolism. So if we can combine your blood chemistry panel, getting your insulin, getting your CRP levels with your VO2 max, that's going to give us a lot more information. And then even if you can do a body fat test to see what your lean body mass versus fat mass, your bone density, we want to see all this together. So aerobic fitness can increase VO2 max because this will help improve insulin, or not because, but increases VO2 max, improves insulin sensitivity, enhances glucose uptake by the muscles, which is the insulin sensitivity, helps regulate blood sugar levels, and promotes longevity. So metabolic health, aerobic exercise, as well as strength training increases that suitcase size, a really important part. So is a higher VO2 max better? So research suggests that a higher VO2 max is not only the predictor of longevity, your cardiovascular fitness, but also cardiovascular health, your metabolic function, mitochondrial biogenesis, oxidative stress, inflammation, brain health, cellular aging processes. So I think this is a big summary here that just VO2 max marker is so important for longevity because it correlates to all these other markers. Cardiovascular health, metabolic function. We talked about mitochondria biogenesis. We talked about oxidative stress and inflammation, brain health, and cellular aging processes. So that gives you a little insight. Neuroprotection and brain health. Talked a little bit. Deronda Patrick talks about the BDNF of exercise. Exercise-induced improvements in cerebral blood flow, neurogenesis, synaptic plasticity may underlie the beneficial effects of a higher VO2 max on brain health and longevity. So VO2 max to brain health, cognitive function, really important. Another reason for aging with exercise. Telomere length and cellular aging. Telomeres are protective caps at the end of the chromosomes that shorten with each cell division and are considered markers of cellular aging. So this is a test I just did with part of the precision medicine program. We are doing a podcast on this and my results of my telomeres. Higher VO2 max is associated with longer telomeres, indicating slower cellular aging and greater cellular longevity. Exercise and aerobic fitness may preserve telomere length, various mechanisms as reducing oxidative stress, inflammation, DNA damage, as well as telomerase activity and cellular repair processes. And I must say, I did a recent rabbit hole podcast on oxidative stress, chronic inflammation, leaky gut for the athlete. So you have to remember, for a lot of my clients and people listening might be more the long-time competitive, driven, ambitious athletes and high performers in life, but also doing a lot of endurance sports for a very long time. And moderate exercise is what we talk about. What a lot of the research shows, the benefits of exercise are moderate amount. When you get to excessive exercise and chronic exercise, excessive intense exercise, as well as endurance, that's where we create more negative effects, I think. So it's, again, the Goldilocks effect, once again, for how much is too much. Too little, too much. What is the right dose of that exercise program that's not going to create excessive inflammation, chronic inflammation, leaky gut, oxidative stress in your body? Because a lot of us, including myself, have done a lot of exercise and it was not helping me. It was making me probably improve aging faster. It's not doing what I want it to do. So if we can do a Pinoy resting test, or, go find a exercise science lab at local university to do your RMR and AMR test. So we're looking at not just your calories burned, but also a breath analysis. So Pinoy is a Greek word for breath. So this is a high-level cardiorespiratory metabolic analysis, 2-part breath test. So we do the resting and exercise. Again, VO2 max is measured that can help us understand your cardiovascular fitness and how well you use, intake, and deliver your oxygen in your body. So when we do PNOE metabolic testing, we're finding your biological age, your VO2 max or peak, metabolic rate, fat burn, lung fitness, heart fitness, recovery capacity. So we're getting all these biomarkers collected in the test, and the exercise test is about 12 minutes total time if we do the right protocol for you with a warm-up test beforehand. So we're going to look at resting metabolism, looking at your cell health, how well you're using oxygen, measuring heart, lungs, cells, blood circulation, metabolism, how they all work together. And then we'll do exercise tests, but both tests for measuring what's called the RER. So your respiratory exchange ratio is what we'll just kind of briefly go over. That's when we're looking at your metabolism part, not so much your VO2 max. But now we want to know, where is my zone 2? Where am I burning the most fat? Where am I burning more carbohydrates? And that is based on the RER measurement. So we're collecting your breath. When we're wearing the mask and you're hooked up, we're measuring and analyzing your breath. Oxygen in, carbon dioxide out. A lot of different markers. But the ratio of the breath exchange is the RER. When you are exercising and at rest, we can see how much fat to carbohydrate you're burning. So we can look at your breathing frequency, RER. 0.7 is fat, 1.0 is all carbohydrates. So this is breathing through your mouth and nose, breathing through your mouth. Might have little differences. And then we're going to look at definitions coming up here. But what do we test? The resting test. Here are all the markers, aerobic test, biological age, I said, your cardiovascular fitness score. We're going to get these reports back. Then we want to look at what is optimal for you. Where are your areas of opportunity? Where do you need to work on? So if we want to individualize how your training program, lifestyle program, recovery, nutrition, all that, we can use this data on top of all my other assessments. But what zones you should be training in and what that zone looks like. Where did you score lower? What is your limitation? So we look at fuel usage. So testing and not guessing, figure out those zones, looking at your fuel sources. So going back to RER, what fat we want to be able to be burning more fat, but still go back to this glycogen tank when we're doing our sprints, doing our running from the tiger, doing our all out workouts, HIIT training. So we want to figure out, where am I burning the most fat? Anaerobic threshold is kind of changing the word. It's not so much we're anaerobic or aerobic. It's just different phases. We're going to be burning more fat, carbohydrates. So we have what's called fuel switching. So each person switches their sources, different rates of fuel source, depending on their systems at each intensity level. So as we're getting more efficient at creating more ATP in zone 2, and then some people are going to switch to different fuel sources as we go up in intensity. So understanding how your unique body uses fats and carbohydrates during exercise helps us figure out your nutrition program, your training workouts, and more, as well as recovery. So we have this word we use, metabolic crossover point. So where is that fat going down? Where is the point where carbohydrates go up? There's a range. It's not just one number, but we look at that and how we can improve it. So what I was touching on before, VO2 divided by CO2 is your RER. Ratio 0.7 to 1.0. When we hit your VO2 max, we're looking at different criteria. We want that VO2 max number to be kind of leveling out. We want to see this RER going to 1.1, and then we'll see that the breathing rate's higher and your heart rate. We'll look at that. It's a certain level. So RER is where we're looking at fuel source being burned. So 0.7 fat, we get a little mixture of fat and carbs, 0.8, 1.0 carb. So again, we see this exchange ratio in the test, and then we can see fat oxidation rates, how we can improve that. And then we look at different fuels used during exercise, fats, fatty acids, triglycerides, glucose, glycogen. And then we get lactate. We talk about that. Phosphocreatine in the zone 5. You're up here. Lactate, you're using that a little bit more in zone 4. So we also want to look at females when we're doing metabolic testing. Where are you in your cycle? If you're still having a cycle, this is better to test. Dr. Stacy Sims said kind of this week after when your period cycle ends. So you're here to before ovulation and maybe right before that last week, luteal phase. Okay. So metabolic efficiency, we'll go into all that. So lots more to cover if you want to dive into more metabolic efficiency, metabolic flexibility, what all that means. But just to finish up, VO2 max, we went over many times what that means. Here's your formula. How effectively your oxygen chain works. Combo of the 3 systems where most conditions likely to kill you originate from. So strengthening your lungs, measuring your hearts and your cells, delivering the oxygen and getting the carbon dioxide back out. So your maximal oxygen consumption, limit influenced by factors such as genetics, age, sex, training status, and more. So I think we talked about most all this, but metabolic health, biological age, all sorts of roadblocks that come in our way. So if you have any questions, just let me know. What is your goal to be optimal? Improve the aging process, looking at what charts for men versus women, what's ideal. Higher is the better on this one. So we want to look at workouts you can do, the 4x4, the Tabata, fartlek workouts. I was looking up the research if it's done on men and women. So the 4x4 workout is men and women. They said the best output of energy was the first one. The last 3 weren't as strong in this study, but that is trying to be consistent on that 4x4. The other research was a 10 by 1 minute. So I was looking at what that study is done on, and they had different protocols if they did sit, high volume interval training, or if they did periodized interval training, doing 10 sessions before midway at the end of each training, cycling to exhaustion. They, during VO2 max, maximal carbon dioxide were estimated. So you can see, I was looking up studies, this by rabbit holes. And then other workouts, doing a pyramid, high intensity as 30 seconds with recovery. There's steady state, more zone 2. And then doing hill repeats, 30 seconds, sprint uphill, recovery back down. So Dr. Stacy Sims brought this to my attention, doing sit training more for women is what she suggested versus men. When I asked their team, what does she say for improving VO2 max? So females, you may want to do more sit training than the 4-minute training to see if that helps. And so I was looking up that research, men versus women, another rabbit hole, and looking at fueling. So just remember, this is a great chart from our program, but your fueling system, ATP, higher amount when we're burning fat. Glycolysis, phosphagen system, oxygen phosphorylation. So down here we've got endurance. And then you start to have a little more carbohydrates, lactate, phosphocreatine system, CP, power and short duration. So you can see these 5 zones. We determine we're getting lots of ATP and you have to work higher intensity. You need to get faster energy. So we have to shift. We can't keep up with this long sustained distance zone 2 pace. We can get enough ATP from burning fat, breaking down fat. But glycolysis is more your zone 3. And then zone 4, more the phosphagen system, or no, that'd be more zone 5. But that lactate is made pyruvate and lactate is reused for fuel. So interesting. We'll hopefully get Joe Friel on the show, talk about lactate, how we're using that all the time, but just more up in that zone 4. All right. So I went on and on and on, but these are all my notes, but just personalization, how to create your training zones. What zone do you need to spend more time in? Depends on your test and where we need to work more in. So a lot of people I test and their zone 2 is really low, small. They're doing too much zone 3 and they're not enough. They're not actually in zone 2 when they think they are. So wearing a heart rate strap is really big. Don't use just the data from your watch that's reading your pulse with the red light back of the watch. I don't find it accurate when I'm doing it. Chest strap is definitely a good investment. And then we can figure out nutrition and your exercise, and then look at your sleep, your hormones, food sensitivities, gut health, leaky gut. and strength training versus sprint training versus zone 2. All right. And then we've got our intervals. What should you do? Women, we might be up here more, maybe less here. Men might be to be down here because they're doing too much here. So we need to switch it up. So the way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. I always love that quote. Comes on the slide. So if you have any questions, DebbiePotts.net for the website. So hopefully that gives you some information, help get you started on your anti-aging program so you can live simply, ageless, or just improve the quality of life so you're thriving as you age, not struggling to survive. Thank you.